at the Re-Takaful level is nowhere near sufficient to cover the Takaful demand. I mean, we've currently seen a number of pure Re-Takaful operations go into runoff, and that sent a very worrying message to the market. But even if you look at the existing established operations, I think we can hardly find an example of an independent Re-Takaful company writing pure Re-Takaful business. The only way to survive as a reinsurance company these days is to offer Re-Takaful as a product, maybe as a window, maybe even have a separate operation, but as long as it's part of a parent company. And I think that will continue to be the case. The reinsurance companies lack critical mass to write pure Takaful business, particularly when we factor in that on average in most markets, the Takaful companies are suffering from higher operating expenses and higher average loss ratios. So it wouldn't be feasible for the Re-Takaful operations to just focus on that. And I think trying to come up with ways to force the Takaful companies to see their business in a certain way is a very short-term view. It should come the other way. Once you do have established Re-Takaful operations who are giving top quality service and giving the capacity, automatically the brokers and the clients will find their way and their business will find their way to those providers. But as it currently stands, I think most of the brokers will approach the Re-Takaful operations, but especially at the early stages when you're looking for lead capacity and pricing and know-how, there are still in most lines of business, especially the specialized lines of business, that end up coming to the London market, because the London market doesn't receive the vast majority of the simpler risks that are being written in the region. It's the more sophisticated lines and risks that come to London, and there we still are lacking the expertise and capacity on the Re-Takaful side.
And I don't know whether you wanted to come back. I'll come back to you in a moment, Zubair. I just wanted to pick up, because I think there seems to be a bit of a disconnect in the sense of the expertise and capacity, because I think certainly the Takaful London market, if you like, would say 10 markets, a lot of expertise in those specialist lines, and is it? Are those underwriters making it known that their capability to write those specialist classes is there? I mean, Anne, do you want to pick up on that maybe?
I agree with what you've been saying on the whole. I think one of the issues that the market is struggling with, from my sense, from an underwriting perspective, there is a chicken and egg situation whereby the brokers need a robust market to go to. And to my mind at the moment, yes, there are people out there, capacity providers that are willing to do it, but it's a little bit piecemeal at the moment. And of course, with the current restrictions in the market, the crunch on capacity and the low pricing levels, of course, organisations are not going to go out on a limb and suddenly expand into this area. One of my observations has also been, over the last year or so, we look to research areas of business, and it's very difficult to get your hands on very sort of robust, tangible statistics from the regions. And of course, we can sit there and say, but we know this business runs well, etc. But underwriters and underwriting companies look for robust data to make that leap of faith. So we've also got that issue. I think we all know the demand is there, but in order to promote the products, it will require more robust teams of people actually just specialising in this. And of course, there are examples of this across the market that do this. But at the moment, yes, there are a number of windows operating to provide, in particular, I think, political violence, on the treaty side has been one area that we've been able to work with successfully. But I think other times we do see that we are precluded from quoting a piece of business on a Shariah compliant basis because that same provider has also offered a conventional quotation. And of course, then you've got an additional cost involved because nobody can work for nothing, and on it goes. So it's this step-by-step process, and I think if the pricing environment were more buoyant, then obviously things would be a lot easier for organisations to deploy more resource into this area. But the market is what it is, and you've got to trade with it as it is. So, do I blame the brokers? No, of course not. I mean, it's always easy to blame the brokers, but it's us as the underwriters having the robust data that I think causes a lot of problems. And of course, other more developed markets, say the US is a classic example, that all the data was sorted out years ago, so everybody gets it come in and it's all easy to manage, etc., etc. So, but we don't have this luxury in the region, so that's it.
I just want to come in here and just say, we're not blaming any specific organisation here. We're not saying that brokers are wholly to blame. I think everyone needs to play their part. If you think about the Islamic finance industry as a whole, and only 2% of the entire Islamic finance industry represents Takaful, then we have a concern here. And there's not only one organisation or one individual, one part of the industry to blame. You can't blame the brokers for it, or the Takaful operators, or the Re-Takaful operators, or the underwriters, or the scholars. But we need to work together. This is very important that we work together, we identify the issues and work together. From the broker's perspective, I mentioned that the brokers need to offer this product to their clients. From the client's perspective, the clients need to demand the product. The underwriters, they have to be a bit more flexible and advise their clients how to improve the underwriting. And the scholars need to make sure that the Takaful product is being brought and the principle of necessity is not abused. So I can't say only brokers are to blame. Everyone has their role to play, and everybody needs to play their role.
A couple of other observations, David. If you look at, Max quoted the London market premium as $90 billion. 55% of that comes from UK clients. Another good 25 at least from US. Very little comes from Asia or Africa, i.e. Islamic. As has been said before, most of it is retained locally or written locally in some form. Could be a RITA company or whatever. So I wonder whether we should be focusing much more on those UK clients, the large commercial clients who are clearly using Islamic finance for construction projects, all sorts of other investment in the country. And as Zubair says, have that dialogue between all the interested parties at that initial investment phase, perhaps using government channels to assist that. I think we're not there yet to get that business from the other countries. It's more likely to stay local unless it's highly specialised, and then it comes to London and there's no capacity or ability there to do that in a Takaful manner. That will be conventional, I think, at the moment. So just a thought whether we should work with the UK stakeholders from the ground up, so to speak, to promote this more.
Yeah. And can I just come back to the data point you talked about? So is that a lack of underwriting data at client end or lack of underwriters' own data, as it were?
Look, I think it's a combination of factors. I think that clearly if you're working in the London market, London has set the standards in terms of as much data being done online, slips online, transactions online. So it's setting the pace. And of course, say if you're working with transactions out of the US or Europe, the clients and the brokers have been they've built up to this over a number of years to get the data all cleaned up, for want of a better word. So, of course, as an underwriter, you'd be sitting there, you've got a certain amount of income you can write in a year, you're under a lot of pressure from your management, you're going to go for the easier transactions, the ones that give you the data quickly, that require less of your time. And on some of the regional business, we're still not there. It's just a learning curve, that's all. Nothing more than that.
And Mohammed, is that an issue that local conventional reinsurers face?
I think the data is a serious issue, and it is at the primary level. If we focus, for example, where a lot of the Takaful business is concentrated in the Middle East and North Africa, there is a data problem there, and that's a problem facing both the Takaful and the conventional companies. It's not just the Takaful. And I do agree it's a learning curve. We are seeing some improvements. You do see huge discrepancy in the quality of data from one market to the next, and within the markets, depending on the companies. We're also seeing some movements by some regulators. You'll see, for example, can give the example of Saudi Arabia, where the regulator there has taken a lot of steps to improve the quality of the data. We take one line of business like the medical, for example. Medical is a line of business that could be easily abused when it comes to data. The sharing of the data is not accurate. Sometimes the clients themselves and the brokers will not gain the accurate information or not pass it on. And SAMA made it kind of a requirement for any holding insurance company, when it comes to the renewal of their medical contract, that the actual insurance company is obliged to share the data that they hold with the broker and potentially with their competitors. And that has had an immediate and significant impact on the quality of the underwriters, on the appetite from the international underwriters to look into the business. So I think, yes, it is a problem, and that's something that needs to be tackled locally. It's going to be very difficult to expect the London market or the international reinsurers to solve that problem. They could assist in terms of consultancy or advising the kind of data they want to see, but it will really be up to each individual company and each market and its regulator to improve that quality.
And I guess sort of increased focus on data protection and data protection regulations doesn't necessarily assist.
GDPR, the amount of time we've spent here on this issue compared to maybe our counterparts in the region is significantly different. So I don't think it's as a hot topic in the region as it is here. But again, as we've seen with a lot of other issues, it usually starts, and soon after it starts getting implemented in the Middle East and North Africa and some of the other regions.
Yeah, I mean, the direction of travel is never backwards, is it, on those things? So, yeah. So I think we've got a fair to say, probably a reasonably gloomy picture at the moment, I think, of where we are. I want to see if we can brighten it up in any way. And come on, there must be some positive things that have been going on in the London market. I know we had a delegation over from Saudi last year. How do you think that was received, and do you think that's going to be a positive?
So when I spoke to David yesterday, we were having similar conversations to what we're having now, and I just went, oh my goodness, I'm going to stay positive tomorrow. So look, from my point of view, we've at Cobalt, we've definitely been seeing more activity. Some of it will become clear. Something will become clear tomorrow that's being announced, but I can't say what that is at the moment. And then over the next few months, we're about to launch a UK-based product. So again, that will be something very positive. So we are seeing more demand. Having been based in a regional market in the past, one of the things that was very clear to me was our roles as educators in these markets. And I don't want that to come across as condescending, but as assisting and helping with the local markets, and also not making the business fit what we do in London. We have to be amenable to setting to be able to provide solutions that suit the local market. So to that end, I think Max Taylor kindly dropped me into helping with the Saudi education program last year that was run by Lloyd's, and I have to say with some reluctance we agreed to have a delegate because we're a small team, but I have to say that what a success that was. I mean, it was a fantastic 8 weeks of working not only with one individual but meeting all the ladies and gentlemen that came over from Saudi Arabia. I mean, it was just a great experience, a great knowledge sharing experience, dispelling some of the ignorances around culture in particular. And for me, that was a massive positive experience. And I think it just goes to show that as a business, we need to be open to this, not just say in Saudi, but in other countries across the region. Be open to it, to education programs. I know that it takes up a lot of people's time, and sure, it was time consuming, but I think, you know, the upside for me is that I have had almost daily contact with the delegate we had since he left in November. So I see that as a real positive side. I know that it will, and all of these delegates returned having had a positive experience, and they're going to be the business leaders of the future. And even if half of them only carry on working in the business, I'm sure they're going to have significant roles in the business community, which is going to directly impact us. Now, it's a long-term move, but it will have an impact over time. So I just would implore businesses, brokers, underwriters to be open to having interns from different regions, not because we can do things better than them, but because we can show them how we do things, and we can learn from them how they do things, and hopefully we can meet somewhere in the middle. That's all. That's my speech on that one.
Yeah.
So,
Zubair, I mean, obviously you've been in the Cobalt office during that time. Do you have any observations as well on?
I've seen demands in other areas, other products. For example, I've been approached several times to find capacity for crop insurance, which is apparently a huge demand from the Southeast Asia area. Recently, others have asked for me to find a solution for them. It was actually a lawyer that approached me, and he said he had a lot of Muslim clients come to him to drop the will. And when they do the will, they have properties worth over £300,000, and they don't realize that, you know, when they pass on, that property will be subject to tax. And if the tax is not paid, then the property can be possessed. So they are looking for some kind of insurance to protect them from those tax obligations. So I've seen lawyers asking me to provide them a Shariah compliant life insurance policy. I've just earlier had a conversation with someone to see if I can find a warranty insurance for their company. So there are demands, there are requests. Obviously, as time goes on, the more demand coming from the clients, then we can approach the capacity providers to say, here's the demand, please supply. And so then we'll go on from there slowly. But I think it's a positive that Takaful is a growing industry, and we are seeing newer products. We are seeing demands especially from Pakistan. I've seen many requests from Pakistan, probably because the government is active in this area, and they are asking the Takaful providers to go and find Re-Takaful solutions, and they're actively involved, and the scholars are involved in this area. That's why we're seeing more demand from the area.
I would add, David, that London is an immensely cosmopolitan city. The London insurance market is similarly so. We have many decades of finding solutions for all sorts of strange types of risks, be they big or small, and that continues to be the case. We continue to promote those capabilities. We also continue to modernise London in terms of its operations, the London market will soon be much more digitized than it is even now, and it is making steps already. That in itself could enable overseas clients to access the market very easily, almost direct peer-to-peer type contact in certain scenarios. We're also looking to create a market that's more inclusive and more diverse in terms of the workforce and also the skill set to match the changing needs of the way we trade. So all of that should be seen as positive, I think, that London continues to be that open, engaging market that clients will want.
Yeah, I mean, just as an open point for all of you here, I mean, I would encourage people to look at what Lloyd's is doing in terms of its kind of business plan and proposed changes and the opportunities that might present to you all in terms of bringing business to London. There are various ideas around capital, and that's certainly something that I've been involved with Lloyd's around how we can look at a more flexible capital base. And obviously ideas like syndicate in a box immediately spring to mind as being things which might be appropriate for certain product lines and so on. So I think that there is that huge amount of opportunity in London, and London continues to evolve and seek out ways in which it can attract business, Dave, I think would be fair to say. I mean, it's the way London is. I mean, Mohammed, on that point, how does demand get increased? What would your kind of advice to the TACFul capacity providers be?
I think the issue continues to be on the primary level. The Takaful companies, I always say that the Re-Takaful will follow once the Takaful is there. And I think there is much more the Takaful industry can do to increase their presence. I'm very skeptical always about the figures and the growth